Welcome to Families Reimagined. This is a video series that will be going along with the teaching series here at the venues in February and March of 2025 called Families Am I Right? I'm Chris, and I'll be the host for each episode. And we would highly encourage you to check out the full teachings online at thevenues.org/messages. Today, we're joined by Tommy and Sherry Lewick. They are a couple that I have had a great privilege of getting to know over the last several months, last year, thereabouts. And oh my goodness, y'all, you are going to absolutely love them. Now, let me tell you up front, you don't need to worry. This isn't some kind of a sermon or anything super churchy. It's merely a resource that we're looking to provide to you, where we're bringing experts in the field, people who have lived experiences, people who have gone through family changes, all as an attempt to provide some really concrete steps that we might all want to think about as we think about what families look like. And one of the specific areas here at the venues that we get questions about all the time about the fact that, maybe I don't have the same faith that I used to. I don't have the same faith that some of my family does. And this can come from a variety of reasons, right? This can come from maybe you've deconstructed and you no longer believe the things that you were brought up with. Maybe you've changed faiths, or like you've converted to a different faith, or maybe you are in a relationship with someone who has a different faith background than you do. And sometimes those things merge. Sometimes they are different, and sometimes they turn out well. Sometimes they don't. And there's a really complicated world where all of those things come together. So one of the things that make Tommy and Sherry so wonderful is that you all have a different background from each other, actually, when it comes to your religious backgrounds. And so what I'd like you to do to start with is just, if you don't mind, share a little bit about the different religious backgrounds that you were both brought up in. And we'll just start there, okay? So, Sherry, you want to just start with us today?
Okay. First of all, thank you for inviting us to do this. Really,
Absolutely.
Because the differences can really divide us, or they can really bring us together. And in mine and Tommy's case, I think it's brought us together. So I was raised Jewish, and my both my father and mother had Orthodox. My great-grandfather was Orthodox, and my dad's mother and father were Orthodox Jews, which would be like ultra traditional and conservative, right? And I was raised in a Reformed family, but I was raised under Jewish tradition. And I got bat mitzvahed. I speak Hebrew. I went to Tel Aviv University for a semester.
My parents weren't Orthodox Jews, but I've got my mom's parents were Lutheran and my dad's parents were Methodist. And then they met some people and they found out about a Bible Institute at Plymouth Baptist Church. And they started going to Bible Institute and to learn all this doctrine that I had to deprogram from. And to give kind of the flavor for those people that know, it was like Southern Baptist with a Northern conservancy.
Okay.
But anyway, that's how I was raised, but very strict, very literal interpretation of all scripture, unless it's specifically poetry or specifically parable.
Sure.
What was in scripture was the word, and that's what we followed.
Well, let me share something that happened between the two of us. Early on in our friendship, we were talking about things, and I've always been super curious just about other religions, other beliefs, other thoughts, ideas. But we were talking and he shared, I'm sure, a quote from the Bible. And I would say, wait a second, that's not what happened.
Right.
So, well, you must not know your Bible very well.
I think
You
it was
need to
about
go
Passover.
back maybe, but you need to go back and learn.
Right. Oh, wow.
And
read.
Which goes really well with me,
Sure.
So I said, well, wait a second. Why would you say that? And that's when I think the first time you really thought about the fact that the different versions of Bibles had different content. Because I said, wait a second, I definitely know what I'm talking about here. I said, where did you learn that? And so I pulled up the two versions on my phone.
Yeah.
And we were like, whoa.
Wow. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I actually really appreciate about you, is it started with that space of kind of curiosity.
We were weird in that we started out as like friends.
Yeah.
Like
And real
when you
curiosity.
talk to a friend, you can just say whatever you want. You do, and that's kind of how it was.
But if we go like even a step further from that is, I remember asking Tommy, this was early on in our friendship, asking him early on, like, you have this real strong confidence. Like, where does that come from? Where's that knowing? And he responded, he said, it's in my faith. I'm super curious about it because I went to Catholic high school. I was invited not to come back myself. We asked too many questions.
Fair enough.
What you think the reason was not.
That's brilliant. Okay? I love it.
So, but we asked too many questions. So we're 13 of us invited not to return.
Okay, fair.
All Jews.
Wow.
But we had a lot of questions about Jesus.
Sure.
And a lot of the questions I hear in church. So I developed this curiosity about Jesus. But then later on in my adulthood, my boss, actually, I can say his name, Jeff Class, who's an evangelical Christian, introduced me to the Jesus he knows. He would open up a Bible and just read something random, and then we would just talk about whatever it meant to him or whatever it meant to me. And it really created this curiosity. So I already had this framework that he was able to really fill in the blanks for me. And so we did have this curiosity. And when we realized that we both learned the same thing completely differently. Because my Old Testament, the Torah, the Old Testament, is not the same as the Old Testament in the King James Bible.
Completely. I was raised very evangelical as well. And there was always this notion in like evangelical Christianity, this phrase called like equally yoked. In fact, one of my very first jobs I ever had.
Equally yoked.
I worked for a company called Equally Yoked. That was a Christian dating service, which is super weird. But even now, my exchange daughter, who goes to a local public high school, she tells me all the time that her friends are like, I'm just looking for a good Christian boy or a good Christian girl or a good, and that seems to be the benchmark baseline that everything else falls into. When you were growing up, how important to your family was it that you found someone else who was from the same tradition that you were?
It was so ingrained in us that you didn't have to ask the question by the time you were dating age.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it was like, have you not been paying attention for the last 12 years or 15 years? And I'd be scared. I would not purposely share with my mom. I went with this girl and she was Mormon. And then when my parents found out she was Mormon, they weren't forbidding me because they knew it was just a friendship and I was kind of attracted to her.
Sure.
But her parents cut it down. I visited her one time. They found out I was a Baptist. It was over.
Wow.
My parents, I can share a funny story.
Sure.
Okay. When I was in high school, a boy named Diego, I grew up in Southern California, but a boy named Diego asked me out. And I said, sure, I'll go out with Diego. And I remember my mom said to me, who are you going out with? And I said, Diego. And she goes, oh, is he Jewish? And which would be her way of looking to see if I was matching, if we were equally yoked. And I said, as a matter of fact, he is. She said, oh, really? What's his last name? I said, Schwartz. But so was it important? I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's the one thing that stands out. But when I did get married, I married somebody who was raised Catholic, who actually converted to Judaism.
Interesting.
Not because I wanted him to. I actually was against it.
Oh, really? That's fascinating.
It's an interesting story. Like when you think like, well, how important was it? My sister thought it was paramount. She was younger than I am. I always made my own rules.
Right. One of the things that I've also been wondering is if there have been some things that have been helpful for you all as you've been married. Were there things either from your tradition that you were brought up in that's been helpful for your marriage that maybe the other person didn't have? Or how have you navigated some of those potential tensions?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it's been, I think it's been paramount to our relationship.
Interesting. Because
the way I was raised and the way most Reformed Jews are raised is very open-minded. Okay. It is a very inclusive religion.
Absolutely.
Okay. And you actually make room for the people that don't have a place to go. You're not taught that if they're different, they don't belong here.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody's welcome. That has really been a paramount, I think, in our relationship, don't you? My open-mindedness definitely comes from my religion.
And it has changed me. When we came here, Sherry came first, and I had pretty much written off church because I didn't like any of Gandhi's Christians.
Sure.
And she goes, you got to come. You got to come. I came for Sherry. I did not come for me. I started coming, and I was like, oh, they love everyone. Oh, it's just not the people that are in the club, you know, and all the things that I would expect if I met Jesus. It's present here. And we're human. It's not perfect.
Of course.
But it's present. She said, after the baptism that we witnessed, she goes, I want to get baptized right in church.
Right.
And I was like, whoa. I started asking questions like they asked me when I got baptized when I was a kid. Yeah. Why do you want to be baptized? Yeah. What for? What do you need to And she said the only words that mattered to me is because I want to follow Jesus's example. That's the only answer.
I said I want to live like Jesus.
Yeah, that was huge to me. I was so proud. I was a little worried when we got married that I was going to get judgment from my siblings that Sherry was a Jew. I didn't get any. All they cared about is if we loved each other. And they were very gentle with me.
We use our best judgment to help another person.
Sure.
Now, I was raised that way. Okay. You always help somebody else, no matter what. Sure. And your voice, because we're taught as Jews, we're taught about the Holocaust when we're this big. And every Sunday school, there's some episode about it.
Yeah,
okay.
Of course.
And so you're taught that your voice is there for the people who can't have one. And so it has been a little bit of a rip because I'll be outspoken about looking for out for other people that maybe feel differently about it. And it has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with being human. And I do think it creates a little bit of a rift.
Oh, it definitely creates a rift. But my part is that I love both humans, and I see Sherry, and I've learned from Sherry. But I still love those people that have
and I do too.
those. And so then it feels like there's tension.
Like I can love them anyway because I don't have any judgment.
Right. Yeah, and I can see I see what you're saying. I can see what both of you are saying here. There's like this tension, especially when you bring your family of origin into it and like the people that you've had a longer relationship with. And then like you also bring the religious baggage, both positive and negative.
Right.
There.
And I would say that that's something that I've learned from Tommy's upbringing and putting myself in that environment is how do you build a bridge with somebody who's really anchored in the cement?
I mean, I'm right in the middle of those.
Yeah.
Let me ask this. Have there been ways that your faith traditions have helped you either go individually or collectively in maybe areas like building bridges or in areas of like finding commonalities?
Chris, can you imagine having the truth right in your very hands and missing it?
Right.
That's how I feel about I'm so thankful that I was raised with some information, traditions, things like that. But I easily throw the chaff or the stuff that doesn't work. And so I wouldn't say that my religious background was about building bridges. They could sit there and tell me that, but it wasn't happening.
No, but now.
I don't know. I just felt like I had this great awakening. And it was slow coming because I was rebelling. I don't like to use the word rebelling. I was kind of...
You had questions.
I've always had questions. I mean, I used to get sent into my parents in big church because I had too many questions for little church.
In the traditions that you were raised with, were there tools or like handholds that you found in your tradition that have allowed you to kind of build through
it's really, really interesting. So I don't know how I missed this piece of it. I really didn't believe in God. I really questioned, what is this God? And I think that was something I've always looked towards people raised like you guys were in this rooted faith where of course there's God. I missed that knowing. Now, 98% of people raised just like I did had that knowing. There was just something I missed.
Disconnect.
It's just some kind of disconnect. So I think that my quest to understand who, how, why does God work in life, I've had more of a quest. I've always leaned more on the culture side of my religion.
Oh, okay. That makes tons of
The
sense.
culture in my religion is fundamental to me, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
Absolutely fundamental. I honor the fact that the calendar changes every year and that, this religion's been around a really long time. And there are those things that I crave and desire.
Kind of the cultural remnants of it.
And I think too, in today's climate, okay, I can tell you that my religious upbringing is in the forefront of every day for me. Literally every day I think about the way I was raised, what being Jewish meant, but also the persecution that I have faced regularly as just a regular American person.
Absolutely.
And for somebody who has survived a neo-Nazi attack, it's even expanded upon. It's kind of hard living in Springfield.
Sure, I can imagine. I think one thing that I would really like to have you all share is if you have any advice, because I think that there are a lot of families who come from different religious traditions, some that are more cultural, some that are more doctrinal or whatever. What do you do when you hit like the tension point of disagreement of like the way that I was raised with my religion XYZ and the way that I was raised with my religion XYZ, they now have a tension point.
Yeah, they bump.
How do you all manage those tensions when they come up?
It's to look for the similarities.
Okay.
Okay, that's my take on Mr. Rogers. Look for the helpers.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, for sure.
Is when we look for the similarities, there are far less differences.
I agree with that.
The reasons behind them are almost always the same. Whatever was drilled into us was always to make us better people and to keep us safe.
I agree with that.
But I really think to just be curious. I mean, it's really kind of the venues thing, right? Is just to be curious. What would you say?
Regardless of how you feel, try to love that person through it. So you're having this tension, let's say you're having tension with a neighbor and they're saying these very things. Well, I still think that having good neighbors is really important.
Yeah.
So I will swallow sometimes and think and maybe even offer up a help me. I can help love them into being a better human. Maybe they can then see Christ in me.
I know Tommy's helped me a lot with it. Is, when you see somebody else as you want to be seen, it really makes a difference.
It's so much easier.
It's so much easier. So really, like, my advice is if you're really struggling with your familial relations due to a conflict in belief, or, you read a different Bible, or you've decided to go to the venues. I mean, my family was like, you go to church? And like, my daughter was like, what's that, all about Jesus? And we brought her, because it's all about love.
If you want to make something a common denominator, we all have it inside us for different things in other people.
Right.
So let's focus on that right here. It'll be easier, even if there's bumps.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's easier to agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Okay. Without even relinquishing any of your position.
And you don't have to be right?
Don't have to be right.
Tommy, Jerry, thank you. By the way, I think that this is really good advice, and it's a really good way that we've processed this. And honestly, the way that you have been able to be curious about each other, the ways that you have brought your religious traditions, even though they are different than each other at times, that have actually not denigrated the other, but have actually built them up.
Yeah.
The ways that you have looked for the best in each other, the way that you look for love in each other and in other people. I think those are the things that, regardless of what the faith combination of people in their family are, whether they were raised exactly the same or literally as polar opposite as you can fathom, I really think that that's going to be very helpful to people to kind of see how that process plays out. So I want to just take a second and just thank you both for sure, because it's been very helpful.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah.
We're here to help each other as humans.
Absolutely.
That's really our only journey.
Absolutely. And so with that said, I just want to also take a second and just thank the people who have been joining us here as well. I know that there's so many different questions and so many different ways that people are engaging with your family and what that all looks like. And so I want to thank you for joining us. And as we are kind of doing this over the next several videos, you're going to see not only maybe how you engage with people who have different faith spaces. We're going to talk about how you come out to your family, how you do a lot of other things within your family. And I'm just really thankful for not only Tommy and Sherry,
thank
but also each of you as you've been joining us in this process. So thank you so much. And if you have any questions, feel free to either email us just at info@thevenues.org, or you can text us. There'll be a number below in the link. And we'll see you later, okay?